Welcome into the Awesemo.com MMA strategy shows. We're here to get you ready for UFC 275, which goes down on a Saturday night. Of course, I'll be here Saturday night in the United States, but it'll be Sunday morning over in Singapore. First fight will start 6:30 a.m. local time in Singapore. So that is something to think about for some of these fighters that are going to take place earlier in the morning because, well, they're going to have to get up very early in the morning. Of course, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Talk about some of those Prize Picks plays coming up here later on in the show. Of course, they've got a nice little deal going on over at Prize Picks, so you got to take advantage for Game 4 of the NBA Finals. But, of course, as always here on the Awesemo MMA Strategy Show, I am joined by the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, would you want to fight at 6:30 in the morning?
No, you know that. No, I would. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I would just have to adjust my sleep schedule, obviously. And you train a lot in the morning. I know a ton of fighters that would hate it, but it's just an adjustment. And if people are part of a strong camp, they're going to have to adjust and get out there early. And a lot of people that underestimate the time zone change and just the entire sleep schedule and the fight week. You see it all the time. Like I recall like back when they went to some high elevation place, right? And a lot of people didn't get out there and get acclimated a week earlier. So, they underestimate it and it really bites them in the butt. So we'll have to see going here, but I'm interested to see how some of these camps adjust. I'm interested for some of these matchups, and it's a heck of a card. I can't wait to see it.
Already brings out the point, says they got to wake up at 4 a.m. to punch someone in the face. Already, I'm going to tell you, they're waking up way before 4 a.m.
Yeah,
they're going to probably be I would say at the latest 3 a.m., probably more like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I would, for me, right? Like a lot of my hard sparring's done in the afternoon or at night, because primarily you're fighting at night. So I would probably be waking up super early, like completely flip the schedule. So who knows? We'll have to see though.
I know Joanna and Jacek, she went over early. You may have noticed last week, a lot of the American top team coaches were not with the fighters in Vegas. Of course, leads you to the strategy. We always talk about strategy in terms of making lineups. It's that strategy of fighting. Of course, we're going to break down this entire slate here for you. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, man. That helps us out so much here. If you're not subscribed to also, be sure to hit that subscribe button. We got shows for you each and every day. Of course, later on today, we've got MLB Deeper Dive and also MLB Live Before Lock. Get you ready for tonight's 5-game MLB main slate. I'll tell you, if you're new to MLB DFS, you got to check out Josh and the way he's doing over there with the Process Show, especially if you are a newer DFS player. Gives you a lot of great information of the correct lineups you want to get into. But Pete, let's get right into this one, as it is Jiri Prochazka trying to become the UFC light heavyweight champion as he challenges Glover Teixeira. It feels like so long ago that the old man Glover Teixeira went out there and won the UFC light heavyweight title, and he is a 2-1 betting underdog in this one. And we look at the DraftKings salaries: $8,900 for Jiri, $7,300 for Glover. And Pete, I don't think it's a hard fight to break down. I mean, I think one of the things I guess I'll start with the Jiri side of the equation. I'll let you kind of get to the Glover side. For Jiri, has not fought since May of last year, so that's something to kind of think about. But he's noted the fact that since May of last year, he has been working on wrestling and grappling, understanding he knows what it was going to come, whether it was going to be Glover or whether it was going to be Jan. We know what he can do from a stand-up abilities. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's got to use that to his advantage. But I think the bigger thing for Jiri in this fight is you got to keep this thing at range, and he has got to make sure his feet do not get behind the black line. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, when you look at the octagon, there's a black line, and you're basically a step, 2 steps away from your back being against the fence. That to me is a key for Jiri in this one.
Yeah, I think that, it's pretty cut and dry that Glover has more ways to win than Jiri Prochazka. Glover can knock him out. Glover can win a decision by, grappling him. He can also take him down, ground and pound him, and submit him. I do think that Jiri, being the younger of the two, it's an advantage for sure. But with the age of Glover Teixeira comes a ton of experience. And from some of the Ryzen fights, you did see that if Jiri gets put on his back, he makes some elementary mistakes, truthfully. Like he doesn't necessarily get back the correct way to his feet. He will absorb ground and pound, which is something that Glover Teixeira 2.0 has really just dominated his opposition with. So I think Glover's clearly going to look to, avoid the big awkward punches and the unorthodox angles of Jiri Prochazka. It's going to be a very difficult task, and he's probably going to look to pin him against the cage, as you say, get him on, against the cage, implement a takedown, and then that's going to be the path to victory for him. I do think that this is a priority fight for me. So where some weeks where I'm okay with getting away from the main event, I don't see how I get away from this main event. I'm going to have one side or the other, and it's a lean for me towards Jiri Prochazka just because of the unorthodox striking, the angles, the movement, the power. We have seen Glover, touched up at times, but as far as like underdogs on the slate, I think that Glover Teixeira is arguably one of the best on the slate, truthfully. Like he has a tremendous ceiling, and I'm going to make a group on Awesemo.com using the Fantasy Cruncher tool. For most of my lineups, there's no way I avoid this fight.
Yeah, I would say you mentioned about making groups or Fancy Cruncher. It's like you were listening to me and Tyler's conversation before you hopped in here, as we were kind of talking about that in terms of making those groups. And I mean, look, it's a fight in terms of GPPs. I fully expect that this fight's going to be optimal. I mean, look, if you tell me, and I do like Jiri Prochazka to go out there and win on Sunday morning, Saturday night here in the United States. But to me, there obviously is a concern of if he gets taken down. It's like I was looking over at Prize Picks earlier today, and the number on takedowns for Glover Teixeira is 1.5. And I'm like, I think it's a good number, but I'm like, he may not score a takedown because Jiri just lights him up on the feet. But then I go, okay, can Jiri get off his back? He spent a lot of time at Fight Ready with Henry Cejudo and Santino and everybody there at Fight Ready. So, but it's also like, I'm like, man, he may not be able to get up. And so like, I'm like, look at the under over there, but I'm like, you know what? If he gets up once, likelihood is Glover's probably going to take him down a second time.
Yeah, I kind of like the over on that number, and I'm happy you brought it up. It's very tricky because everybody's expecting Jiri to just go out there and cut right through Glover Teixeira, and he very well could because Glover he's hittable. He's very hittable, and he's susceptible to getting knocked out. But like he is so well rounded. Like if you really think about it, he is the much more well rounded MMA fighter in this situation. And sometimes we over project and overestimate knockouts. You know what I mean? Like finishes happen, especially in the larger weight classes. But sometimes these guys are able to absorb shots, and it becomes a war. So I mean, Glover's he's training with Pereira all the time. So I know that he has a strong camp, and he's looked amazing. Everybody that he's gone on the win streak against has knockout power, but I think that Jiri's a different puzzle, definitely a different puzzle. Now, the Henry Cejudo help will, obviously increase Jiri Prochazka's wrestling defense, but it's if he gets taken down, the jiu-jitsu advantage. That's where I think the pressure of Glover Teixeira can really be implemented and shown, and that's where the ground and pound and trapping the arm and just punishing him there. Because I'll tell you what, Jiri Prochazka was taking some big shots over in Ryzen against Albrechtsen, and I'll tell you, Albrechtsen's a very good wrestler, but he's not at Glover Teixeira's caliber when it comes to ground and pound and just brutalizing his opponents. So it's a long-winded way to say I'm going to be prioritizing this fight, and it's a lean towards Prochazka.
You talk about Ryzen, and I talked about this yesterday on my podcast. If you go back to that 2015 Grand Prix they did in Ryzen, the field, how well that field has aged. King Mo was a big name at that time, and of course Jiri ends up winning it. You have Jiri, Vadim Nemkov is in that. Bruno Capilauza, who is the PFL champion, was in that. Also, Valentin Moldavsky, who's challenged for the Bellator heavyweight title, was in it. So it was a very stacked field over there. Sam, appreciate you in the chat. Of course, I mean, my guy Pete is looking a little thick over there. It's like he's training all these young bucks every day who are just trying to take his head off.
Every day I got to watch my back. These guys are trying to kill me, but it's good. It keeps me sharp, and all my guys are light heavyweights and up. So that's when I go against people my size, it feels amazing. So yeah, I mean, I'm training all the time and can't wait. We got a big opportunity for one of my fighters with a grappling match against a guy who was on Dana White's Contender Series and just fought for the CES belt. So shout out to my fighter Wolfgang. We're training hard, and we're going to get that W for his grappling match.
Sam also with another super chat. Appreciate it, Sam. He says Jiri was smashed Glover into the retirement home. Here's my thing. I think Glover understands. You know, we're in the back 9 of the career. We might be in the back 3 of the career at this point. But like, I don't know if he would retire with a loss. I feel like he would still try to get at least one more.
Yeah, I mean, that's always tough when, to leave on a loss because you want to. I mean, MMA fighters, a lot of them don't retire on their own terms, and it's very, very sad. We talk about it all the time. What Glover Teixeira has done within the past couple of years has shocked a ton of people. Despite having all the skills, durability still checks out at his age against the young, dangerous fighters within the division. Now, does it last again? Does his durability hold up in this situation? So I can't wait to see the fight. I'm basically taking, like, my gut says that Glover Teixeira gets him down, but my head is telling me that, like, Jiri Prochazka is just going to be too much on the feet for him.
Of course, this is the Awesemo.com MMA strategy show. We're getting ready for UFC 275. And if you're not an Awesemo Plus member, we're going to tell you about a great offer we have for you that you definitely want to take advantage of leading into UFC 275. But if you're not a member currently, you want to get a little peek what's behind the paywall. Today's free premium data and tools, MLB player projections. Of course, you head over to Awesemo.com, check those out, and of course, help develop those MLB lines for later on today for the 5-game main slate. Of course, got some afternoon baseball going on right now. Let's move on to the co-main event, which is also a title fight. So another 5-round matchup. You got Valentina Shevchenko defending the flyweight title as she is challenged by Thalia Santos, 9,600 for Valentina Shevchenko, 6,600 for Thalia Santos. And well, me and Pete got done recording the Odd Chopper video for the best bets. You can check over the Odd Chopper YouTube channel. Pete goes, "Hey man, you peaked at Valentina's salary?" I'm like, no, man. I'm like, what, like 9,400? It's like, nope. This is my thing. And I've been thinking about this all morning. And I'm like, okay, for Valentina to be optimal, especially this price point, like, to me, she's got to get 130 plus points. We've seen her do that 2 times. One score she had 138 and never scored 131. But then, like, as I look at this slate overall, I mean, look, I love Valentina to win this fight. I think Thalia's got to make this a dog fight. I think she has to take chances, and she just has to start, flinging some punches and hopefully, clip her with something. But I'm like, how do we fit Valentina Shevchenko into an optimal lineup? Unless we have, like, 3 to 4 underdogs that come in and score 100 plus points.
Yeah, and I think roster construction is going to be interesting this week. I do think that a ton of underdogs are live. Like, I really do think a ton of underdogs are live. Valentina Shevchenko priced at 9,600. We need at least 110, right? There are 1, 2, 3, 4 of her fights where she did not reach the 110 mark. And some of those are finishes as well. So I think that she's a dominant fighter. I think she's one of the best fighters to ever live. I personally have always said that she's the best women's mixed martial artist. But those losses over Amanda Nunes, it's hard to dispute that. Like, she lost. But I've always just said, from a skill standpoint, I think she's the most skilled of anybody within the women's MMA just world that I've ever seen. I think that a lot of people banking on a collapse from a top athlete trying to predict the Amanda Nunes collapse, I think it could be a trap. I do think that Thalia Santos is a dangerous fighter. I think that she could win a round, maybe 2, if she goes out there and she tries to implement the Jennifer Maia approach, pin her against the cage, bully her against the cage, implement takedowns. But, like, Shevchenko can land takedowns herself. And I really feel like that's the best path to victory for Thalia Santos, is getting in top position and winning minutes. But trying to do that over the course of 25 minutes, she has to win 3 rounds against Shevchenko. I don't see it. I really don't see it. I think that Shevchenko can land takedowns. I think she could hurt her on the feet. I do think this goes the distance. So the price tag at 9,600 is something I will have to monitor the ownership, because I feel like I might be a little bit underweight to it, Jason. Like, it's a steep price tag. I expect her to win, but more often than not, there's going to be some other fighters at cheaper salaries that come through with some high, point totals. and just it's all about building the correct combination. I'm going to have plenty of Shevchenko, but I'm just saying that 9,600, if she scores 115, that may not be enough because you really box yourself out of so many combinations due to the salary.
You know, I mentioned a comment from Marcos where he talked about, you know, Shevchenko's not locked. This goes 5 rounds. I don't see it in the optimal. It also goes on to say Santos has good takedown defense. This could be a low volume and not many takedowns, 5-round kind of deal. I mean, look, this is my thing. This is a massive step up in competition for Thalia Santos.
Oh, yeah.
JoJo Wood, quality opponent. But if I sit there and say, tell me the best fighter she's fought in the UFC, not named JoJo Wood, Marinero Barella, Molly McCann, Jillian Robertson, Roxanne Modafferi.
Yeah, and a lot of those are at the tail end of their careers.
And they're all decision wins. Or outside the Barella fight, that was a decision loss.
All I got to say is, and no offense to Romero Barella, Tyler Santos lost to her. There ain't no way she's beating Shevchenko. There's no way she's beating Shevchenko. That's MMA math at its finest, which would make Mara Romero Barella is one of the worst fighters within the division who, when she's offensive, she looks great, but she would always get beaten in like ridiculous fashion. The fact that Tyler Santos got bullied in that fight really speaks volumes. And I think the last 4 fights of Santos, she's looked improved. But Modafferi's shot, she scored 5 takedowns in that fight, unanimous decision. Joanne Wood, I think she's shot as well. Outside of being a volume puncher, I think that she can get bullied in there, and she really screwed her whole career up by trying to remain active instead of being patient. Jillian Robertson, you know that she can get bullied if she's not able to land in top position. So, I mean, like, I think Tyler Santos is good. I think she could win a round or 2, or maybe it's like the rounds are super competitive, but it's like edge Shevchenko. So that's where it's, if Shevchenko fits your lineups player. Tyler Santos's salary though at 6,600 is something to speak of because it's just ridiculously cheap. It's so cheap that maybe even a loss, if we have some underdogs not come through, maybe she gets 50 points or something like that. And at 6,600, it just allows you to reach, you know, some ridiculous high performers at the top. So it's a Shevchenko play for me and a sprinkle of Tyler Santos just because of her salary.
And something to know, Shevchenko, her last 3 fights, 15 takedowns completed total in those 3 fights. I mean, look, I will be underweight to the field on Shevchenko. I haven't done lineups and I haven't kind of figured out how many. My guess would be I'll probably be in the 30 to 35% range on Shevchenko because I still want to get there. But like, if I'm hand building a lineup, I don't think I'll get to Shevchenko.
Yeah, I mean, hand building's tough because, you know, naturally you just flock to some other names and it's like, okay, that's a little too difficult. Whereas when you allow like your groups to create it for you and Fantasy Cruncher, you take your bias out of it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And sometimes your bias will box you out of winning an optimal lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a heavy price tag, and you just know when you're putting her in a lineup, you know, you're going to be first thinking of hoping that, you know, it's not like a week where you have 8-9 fighters all get 100 points, because if that happens, she's going to need to get 110, 115, 120 points. I mentioned, go ahead, Pete.
Okay. Yep. We have so much chemistry. Jason just can read my mind and knows that I wanted to say something. We've been doing it forever.
I can kind of say, I saw the kind of facial expression. It kind of felt like you had something more to say.
Well, I mean, against Liz Carmouche in a 5-round fight, right? Valentina Shevchenko scored 74 in a 5-round decision against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She scored 111. So I think anything between there is probably where she's going to land, and that's where I'm going to be a little bit lighter than the field. But as far as cash, I suspect she's going to get a dominant victory.
No doubt about it. Of course, I mentioned a little while ago that we have a great offer going on over at Awesemo.com right now. And if you've never been an Awesemo Plus member, this is a great time to sign up right now, as you can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. There's a link right in the description of this video below. or you can use the promo code MMA Strategy Show, all one word, all caps, MMA Strategy Show, where you can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, this is for new users only. You hear me and Pete always talking about all the tools that we're using over Awesemo.com. This is what we use to develop our lineups. And of course, when you sign for Awesemo Plus Platinum, you get everything that's over Awesemo.com. So if you want to play a little MLB, you got that. You want to play a little NBA, you got that. You want to play a little NASCAR, you got that as well. Everything is over Awesemo.com. It's an absolutely amazing deal. You got to sign up. And Pete, for me, it's that top fighter tool when we're talking about MMA. That's what I mean. Literally, two of my sheets here are the top fighter tools, the things that I'm looking at. And I'll tell you, when you're also a Plus member, I mean, obviously you're looking at what we're projecting the scores to be, but also the win percentage, ownership, top 6%, which is something I talk about NASCAR all the time, but also very key in MMA, looking at that top 6%. So if you've never been an Awesemo Plus member, this is an awesome time to sign up right now. Get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Of course, link right in the video description below, or you go to our join page over Awesemo.com. Use that promo code MMA Strategy Show. All one word, all caps, MMA Strategy Show. And of course, something I think we really don't talk about. Of course, Fantasy Cruncher is something you to add on to your account. Highly recommend doing that. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about how you'd use Fantasy Cruncher for your groups.
Well, me personally, I depend a lot on fight film. That's just how I am. Like, I love analyzing the fights from a data perspective as well. But you can kind of tell when you're watching tape which fight kind of feels like an optimal fight. And you can also compare it to the betting odds, right? Like which fight is going to end inside the distance. And it's like, let's say Jiri Prochazka, Glover Teixeira, like that, you have 5 rounds to work with. You know that they're both violent fighters, the salaries. So what I would like to do is I'd like to go into the Awesemo tool on Fantasy Cruncher, and I go in there and I create a group. And I do this for multiple fights where I'm like, I have a very good feeling. I'm torn on the fight, but I have a very good feeling that this fight's going to make it into the optimal lineup, because it's going to be one-way traffic, one way or the other. Or it's just going to be such a shift in momentum that we're going to see one fighter just completely exceed their salary. And that's where you can combine it. If you want to put multiple fights in there, you can say that you can get to at least one of these fighters. Or if you're super confident, you can say, all right, I like these 3 fights. I want at least 3 fighters, okay, within this range to come in. So 3 of these 6 fighters need to be in all my lineups, something like that, which, if you don't hit on the fights, obviously you're not going to, come out on top. But more often than not, man, you can always tell which fights are going to be bangers and which might be snooze fests.
There is a female fight on this card that I think we have to prioritize for GPP. It's not the next matchup we're going to talk about. It's a matchup very early on the card.
I think we're going to be I think I agree with you, because I already crunched the lineups before I came on the show. I got a ton of lineups going this weekend, and I feel pretty confident in targeting the correct fight. So I can't wait to break it down.
Of course, I mentioned about the female matchup. It is a rematch that took place back in March of 2020. And that's the last time we have seen Joanna and Jacek. Just to give you an idea, John Jones fought 1 month prior to the last time Joanna and Jacek had a fight. It's true, Pete. It's true. It's been a long time.
I know it is. And if you haven't tuned into our Odd Shopper video for our best bets, please do so. Jason and I break, down the best bets coming into each week. Our money line play, our prop bet, and our 3-fighter parlay. So we're on opposite ends of this fight, and it's okay, because last week I told everybody that I like Johnny Munoz, and that was a terrible play. Jason's over there tooting the Tony Gravely horn, telling people that he likes Tony Gravely, and that's why, like, in a middle ground where if I'm torn on a fight, or I like one side and Jason likes the other, sometimes it's good to get exposure to both. And here's another week, Jason. I like Joanna and Jacek, and you like Zhang Weili.
I mean, look, I would say this, and from a cash perspective, Joanna and Jacek is popping off to me. But it is from a salary aspect. Look, I think we're going to see a very close fight between these 2 fighters once again. Now the fact that it's a 3-round fight and not a 5-round fight I believe favors Weili Zhang in this situation. I think Joanna's fighting ability is much more suited for 5 rounds. Now, I have a feeling we might get through 15 minutes in this fight, and we're all going, damn, man, I wish we had 10 more minutes left in this matchup. The one thing that concern from a daily fantasy perspective on Joanna and Jacek is it's just striking. I don't expect to see takedowns. Now, Weili trains there at Fight Ready when she comes into the United States. We saw her attempt to get the fight to the ground the first one. I want to say she was 1 for 8 in takedown attempts in their first meeting. I would expect her to go the takedown route. Look, in terms of a general fight, I do like Weili to win this fight. In terms of DFS, I don't love the 8,800 salary.
Yeah, I mean, what a shame we don't have 5 rounds for this fight. It's what the hell are you doing, UFC? Give them 5 rounds. Or maybe they're trying to preserve the health for both of them because it was such a violent fight. But I will tell you that the 3-round nature is a little bit interesting, especially for both fighters where they're so accustomed for 5 rounds. Pacing's different, right? So you have to go out there and really increase the pace because you don't have so much time remaining. And that seems obvious, but it's a true adjustment that a lot of fighters need to make in camp. I believe that they will, and the takedowns of Zhang Weili could end up capturing some close rounds. So I'm expecting it to be largely competitive on the feet. I do like Joanna Jacek's salary at 7,400. It's tough not to like that. In a loss in the original matchup against Zhang Weili, she scored 78 fantasy points. Granted, that was 5 rounds to work with. So maybe even in a loss, she could score 50 points or something like that. I just think her salary is super cheap. I did think it was competitive on the feet. I do like the adjustments and the coaches, a part of American Top Team. Thiago Alves, Daya Davis, Steve Mako with the wrestling. Understand that Zhang Weili out of Fight Ready as well, mixing in some cross training. I think it's Bang Tao or Muay Thai camp or something like that as well. So I'm interested to see the fight. I do like Joanna for DFS though, because Zhang Weili in a decision, I think we're all expecting it to go the distance, right? So take the over in this situation, but does she pay off at 8,800? I think Joanna pays off more likely than Zhang Weili.
Don't worry, that's why we're Prize Picks. I was hoping there'd be a fight time prop, and even if it was like 14.75, I was still going to take the over. If there becomes a fight time prop on this fight, I'm just taking the over because I'm expecting this thing to go 15 minutes. I mean, look, I think in cash this week, Joanna might be a cash core play for me, even though I like Weili to win the fight. It's just like at that price point of 7,400. It's going to allow me to get to other things, when we're talking about some of these higher price options. I think that primarily it's going to be a fight that plays out on the feet. I just think from a GPP perspective, I don't know if it's optimal.
Yeah. It's all slate dependent and all depending on the rest of the other fights. If a lot of the underdogs crap out, maybe a high volume striking affair of Joanna, even in a losing effort, maybe it's enough. But I can't wait to see the fight. I feel like a lot of ownership's going to flock to it naturally. So I may pivot a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there's another underdog that I really like this week, and I believe you're on the same page with me. So we'll get to that as well.
By the way, fight goes to distance ranges anywhere from minus 250 to as low as minus 225. I mean,
it's really not bad though.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, like I don't really like parlaying props, but I wouldn't mind parlaying that prop.
Yeah. And Josh Schmeck in chat says, ATT made Karolina Kowalkiewicz look like a contender last week. And that's something we talked about on the Odd Shopper video. I said, man, Karolina looked career best. And that could have been largely due to Felice Herrig. She's Joanna's up against Zhang Weili, so much more difficult task ahead of her.
Oh, no question about it. It was funny as my first introduction to Felice Herrig was when she fought Carla Esparza here in Tampa. Did not realize as I was looking at the card the other day. So this is back in 2011. Marlon Moraes was the 3rd fight of the night. Wow. Phil DeRue, the old strength and conditioning coach for American Top Team, was in the 1st fight of the night.
No kidding. Oh my God. It's a small world.
Yeah, a small world that we do live in here. Of course, let's move on to the next matchup here. We got Manel Kape taking on Rogerio Bontorin. Miguel Kape, 9,200 Kape, excuse me. Bontorin is $7,000. Manel Kape, I mean, look, it's to me, he has got title ceiling in the UFC. He had the stumbling block, and of course, unfortunately, his last fight doesn't come together with the whole USADA issue here. The price tag here to me it comes down to that matter of, do you think he can get a stoppage?
Yeah, I personally love Manel Kape from a longevity standpoint within his division, and also for this slate. I think that I wish he was cheaper. I mean, he's consistently priced in the 9,000 range. Back-to-back fights, he was 9,400 and 9,000. Comes into this fight at 9,200. But in each of those efforts against Ode Osborne and Zhalgas Zhumagulov, he, performed admirably. 107 against Ode, 131 against Zhalgas. And I feel like we're still not even seeing the best out of Manel Kape. This is one of my confident plays of the slate, where it's the flyweight division. Super competitive fights, tons of activity. Anybody can make it a close fight. But from what I've seen from Rogerio Bontorin, outside of landing monstrous takedowns, like he went 8 of 9 against Brandon Royval, who is a fantastic jiu-jitsu fighter, not the best wrestler. Manel Kape's a much better wrestler than Brandon Royval. So I can't wait to see them engage in some grappling situations. Bontorin scored 67 in a loss. I'm sprinkling in Bontorin just because of the division, taking the bias out of it. But as far as competitive and confident plays, I think that Manel Kape at 9,200 is going to be a guy that's going to be an ownership play for me. If people are light on him, no problem. I'm getting to Manel Kape regardless. From what I saw from Kai Kara France, of how he really hurt Rogerio Bontorin, reverse positions, landing some big shots, knocked them out. I think Manel Kape can replicate that and more. Like, Manel Kape hasn't even shown how well he can wrestle. So I can't wait to watch him perform at 9,200.
By the way, Samuel, appreciate you there in the super chat. His Weili pulling a Carolina. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that.
I mean, maybe because, like, coming back from defeats and looking career best in this matchup, maybe that's what he's saying. I mean, but Carolina was like on a 5-fight skid. Zhang Weili is just coming off of stumbling a little bit out the gate in a competitive fight against Rose Namajunas, and then before that was a knockout defeat. So I don't know. It's always tough to predict because Joanna is the one coming off the layoff.
And she's also, Joanna 2-4 in her last 6. So something, but both these ladies do know the winner is going to get Carla Esparza. Who would have thought back in 2015, we just talking 2022, a Carla Esparza Joanna Jacek rematch.
Do you remember Joanna beat the brakes off of Carla Esparza? Ooh. Like, boy, that's one of the best performances ever, where she just sprawl and brawl and just lit her up on the feet. So, like, Carla Esparza capturing the title makes Joanna go, it's my title. It's my title. I got to get past Zhang Weili, which is very tough. But if you go back and you watch that fight, like, some people could have scored it for Joanna. No problem at all.
Yeah, I mean, the first fight was a close matchup there, but in terms of Manel Kape, I do want to get there. Manel Kape, I will tell you, when we talk about prize picks, I do like some of the prize picks props on Manel Kape over there for Saturday's UFC 275. Next up is a man. I just see Pete's eyes just spark up here, because this is a fight that we talked about, and I was blown away by the DraftKings salaries on this one. This is why I'm very interested to see what it looks like on FanDuel, and FanDuel puts their salaries out there. Jack Della, Maddalena, and Ramadan Emeev, 8,200 for Maddalena, who is a 160 betting favorite. Emeev, 8,000. I am going to the conversation me and Pete had off air. Pete's like, hey, what do you think Maddalena is? I'm like, oh, what, 86, 8,700? He's like, no, bro, 8,200. I'm like, holy crap. I mean, it is such a low number to me for what Maddalena is. But to offer up the other side of this equation is, I expect that you're going to see Emeev try to take Maddalena to take down City.
Yeah. So, I mean, Nick saying in chat, Emeev's a big step up in competition. He's right. I mean, but Emeev's not a 3-round fighter. Emeev is very good in round 1. Round 2 is where he starts to taper off, but he has, very good wrestling, which would be the Achilles heel for a very phenomenal striker in Jack Della Maddalena, one of my favorite prospects in the sport. So I don't know, like, well, my prospect watch, when I say it and I label him a prospect in my eyes, it takes a lot. Hamza, Tom Aspinall, Romanov, Manel Kopp. I mean, Aaron, Blanchfield. I'll tell you what, Della Maddalena's on my prospect list, and I really, really like him. And I think that he can surprise people. If people aren't believers here, no problem. 82, you're never going to get Jack Della Maddalena at 8,200 ever again. I really don't think you are, unless he's fighting some ridiculous step up in competition. Hamazam Emeev, questionable gas tank, gets hit a lot on the feet. Go back and look at the Nick Stolze fight. Nicholas Stolze looked like he could have beaten him out of there and gotten him out of there and finished him. Danny Roberts was able to stifle some attacks and end up winning a split decision. But I really think that Jack Della Maddalena might be my most overexposed fighter on the slate. He might come in as the most popular fighter on the slate, but to all you Awesemo, viewers out there, he's my favorite. I really like him. Price tag's too cheap. I think that he can brutalize Emeev on the feet, stuff some takedowns, and get up if he does get taken down. So in an age where judges are valuing damage over control, how do you not like Jack Della Maddalena? On the flip side, Emeev, is a contrarian play for sure, because we see it all the time, that chalk busts, and it could be a leverage play where if he's going single digit ownership, just double that ownership a little bit. And that's a nice little way to hedge. But Della Maddalena is one of my favorite plays on the slate.
Yeah, that ownership is definitely leverage place to get out there. By the way, hat tip to Spencer. Just let me know, FanDuel salaries are out, and Jack Della Maddalena $17 over on FanDuel. So I think more appropriate pricing. I feel like that's something we never necessarily always say with FanDuel, but appropriate pricing there for Jack Della Maddalena. But obviously great prospect. But look, everyone is going to have the question mark until we see it happen of what happens. Does he look like on his back? Let's move on next up to a matchup between Brendan Allen and Jacob Malkoun. Brendan Allen is 9,000. Jacob Malkoun 7,200. Of course, everyone knows Jacob Malkoun is the BJJ coach of Robert Whitaker. I believe they're business partners in Whitaker's gym there. Down under. Of course, Whitaker and Marvin Tory are supposed to be on this fight card. That's why Malkoun was placed on this fight card here. This is, as we talk about underdogs, that every week we're going to be we're searching for dogs in DFS, and Malkoun is one of those guys that I'm looking at this week, Pete, and it's just because of his potential of control in this fight on the mat.
Yeah, and I think naturally Brendan Allen has the name value, so he's going to attract some ownership. Jacob Malkoun is the guy who got completely destroyed against Phil Hawes, and people aren't believers. I'll tell you what, the film doesn't lie, man. The film does not lie. And from what I see on film, I'm increasing ownership to Jacob Malkoun. I really am. I'm actually picking him to win this fight, which may shock a lot of people. In the striking department, he's going to be at a disadvantage against Brendan Allen. He is. Brendan Allen can hit him with shots, and his kickboxing has elevated since he's been at Sanford MMA. It's the grappling situations where Brendan Allen's usually the dominant fighter in those situations. But from what I saw from Jacob Malkoun, it's just the pace. It's pretty reminiscent to how like Colby Covington does. He shot 8 of 20. He landed 8 of 24 takedown attempts against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Now that's ridiculous work rate, like ridiculous. He grabs a head outside single and he trips the back leg. He goes to it over and over. He does some high crotch takedowns. He goes, if those bail, he has like a nice chaining sequence of takedowns where if one fails, he goes to the next one. He goes to a body lock. He goes to a leg lace. I'm telling you, the film on this kid is impressive. It really is. The AJ Dobson fight worked well for me. I like Jacob Malkoun there at 6 out of 16 takedown attempts. I think Brendan Allen can get controlled on the mat, truthfully. Sean Strickland landed takedowns against him. Kyle Dawkins put him in some bad spots on the mat. Brendan Allen's able to reverse out of positions. But I think that, Jacob Malkoun can solidify position a little bit better, maintain top position, trip Brendan Allen, avoid the dangerous submission attempts and the guillotines of Brendan Allen. So for me, he's my underdog play of the week. And if you just like the name value of Brendan Allen, no problem. I understand it. Totally understand it. But from the film, I got to be more I got to be heavier on Jacob Malkoun than what the field's doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things of we are going to take chances as DFS players, and I don't mind taking a chance just because of the ability of Malkoun. You know, you mentioned about, I mean, the guy's just going to continue to try to get this fight to the ground, something to pay attention to there. But obviously, that could be a situation where, depending on where the ownership goes over the next couple of days with Brandon Allen, maybe that's the spot that you want to get to when looking at those, you know, high tier salaries, those 9,000 and up salaries. Of course, this is the Awesemo.com MMA strategy show. We're getting ready for UFC 275, and we are sponsored by Prize Picks. You got to go over there to prizepicks.com. Of course, download the app over in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Of course, be sure to use that promo code Awesemo when you sign up. So they got instant first match deposit of up to $100. So you put in $100, they give you $100, and they've got a free square going on right now for Game 4 of the NBA Finals. You got to take advantage of it. Jason Tatum, half a point. You know he's going to score probably 25, 30 points, but he's going to score more than half a point. So you compare that up with some of these MMA props over there. And I mentioned about Manel Kape, Pete. I was looking over there at those Prize Picks, and I'm looking at that significant strikes on Manel Kape. I think this fight's going to last longer, late second, maybe you can get to the third round. So I'm looking at the over 52.5 significant strikes on Manel Kape.
Yeah, I mean, in round 1, he landed 53 against Zhalgashu Magomedov. Round 1, he landed 19 against Ode Osborne. If this reaches the second and third round, you would like to think that he's able to meet that line. So I would agree with you. Rogerio Bontorin's super tough, but I think he's getting knocked out in the second or third.
One of the fight times that it interests me as well is actually the Valentina Shevchenko fight time line, which is 20.5. I'm kind of leaning under on this one, Pete.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that Tyler Santos is tough, and I'm predicting it's going to be, a late finish wouldn't surprise me, because Tyler Santos in 5 rounds is not. It doesn't favor her style. It really doesn't, and especially when she's looked gassed at times. But if she's just able to hold on, maybe it goes the distance.
I do want to see where these takedown props go. Like, especially with Glover share at 1.5, that's a tricky number to me. Can see that going either way. Jacob Malkoun, by the way, his takedown number is 3.
So he's got to land 4. I say more. I do. I think that Brendan Allen's going to be skilled enough to get back to his feet, and it's just going to happen over and over and over. It may be a competitive fight, but at his salary, he's too cheap for what his ceiling is.
The other interesting takedown prop that sticks out to me is Thalia Santos 1.
I think she lands a takedown. She needs to. The whole camp better be around taking Valentina Shevchenko down.
Wait, you say you don't want to have a kickboxing match with Shevchenko? Is that what you're saying?
She's not bad on the feet, but I think she's going to get destroyed. So,
of course, you got to check out our sponsor over there, Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Of course, you can click the link in the video description below, or head to prizepicks.com, download the Prize Picks app in the App Store or Google Play. Of course, use that promo code Awesemo. Instant first match deposit of up to $100. Of course, you got to take advantage of that deal they got going on there right now for Game 4 of the NBA Finals with Jason Tatum, a half a point. We all know you're smashing that over there. I will be making sure that I have a ton over there, as did pretty well last night on Prize Picks, playing a little NBA. Let's move over to the next matchup. You got Choi taking on Culibao. Culibao 7,100, Choi 9,100. This is a fight, Pete. Low ownership on both sides. This one.
Yeah, and I think it's most people predicting it's going to go the distance. Culibao is not bad. He's really not bad. He can strike. He can mix in some takedowns, but he's not like a prolific takedown artist that would necessarily threaten Seungwoo Choi. Seungwoo Choi is like a stylistic dependent fighter to target. Whereas if he's going up against a strong wrestler, you might want to lean towards the wrestler. Movsar Evloev landed a bunch of takedowns against him, but I mean, Seungwoo Choi did defend 11 of them. He also defended 8 takedowns against Gavin Tucker. It's just he's not as threatening on the mat as he is standing up. He's massive for the division for featherweight. He hits really hard. Culibao is super tough, though. Super, super tough. but I got to lean in Sung Woo Choi's favor. Like I really do. I think that he's just going to be too big for for Joshua Culibao. And I think we're going to see a strong performance. A knockout wouldn't necessarily surprise me, but this is an ownership play because, this could be an aggressive stand-up affair. One shot lands, and my guy Sung Woo Choi ends up being victorious inside the distance. So 9,100 Sung Woo Choi is a nice leverage play.
Next up, we got a matchup between Steve Garcia and Maheshate. Maheshate 7,800, 8,400 for Steve Garcia. If you look at Maheshate, if you just like peek at your line, you might think it says Misha Tate the way it's spelled out, but it's Maheshate. This is where fight film, but also understanding matchmaking, Pete.
Yeah, I mean,
what? Okay, you're Steve Garcia. You're flying to Singapore to take on Maheshate. I look at this thinking the UFC feels like this is a good matchup for Maheshate against Garcia, even though Garcia is the betting favorite.
Interesting. I mean, sometimes they just want to have locals tune in to an exciting young prospect where I think Maheshate is pretty big for the division and he hits hard. But if you go back and you look at the Dana White's Contender Series fight, he was rocked numerous times. And I'll tell you what, Steve Garcia being a lighter, like a bantamweight at one time, and naturally graduating to the lightweight division, he's been in some wars. I remember him being in a ridiculous war on the Bellator undercard against Kin Moy. It was one of the best fights I've ever seen. Like I have to tell you, I was in the back prepping for my fight, and I was just like, this is a banger. It was great. So Steve Garcia can welcome a war for sure. I like him here at 8,400. Truthfully. Everything's set up in Maheshate's favor. Hometown rub is always a possibility of just getting a greasy decision because the crowd oohing and eyeing in your favor. 7,800. It's a fight that I'm not necessarily prioritizing. It's going to be a violent one, but it's not one where I have like a confident, belief that Maheshate is going to go out there and knock out Steve Garcia or take him down. If anybody's going to get takedowns, I believe it'd be Steve Garcia. So give me Steve Garcia at 8,400, but it's a neutral play for me.
You and Steve Garcia have something in common, by the way.
What is that?
Old school Bellator really loved you guys because you guys knew how to put butts in the seats.
Oh,
and
yes.
I've told a story before, but I remember when Tito and Rampage were supposed to fight?
Yeah.
So like they were doing this conference call, but it was a day of an event in New Mexico. I was in New Mexico, so I got there early. Bellator lets me in the building early so I can get on this conference call. And there's like, it's like right outside ticket off, it's like 40 people all in the same shirt. And I go, who's that? They go, oh, that's Steve Garcia's fans. He was the first fight of the night. He's now after the main card.
Yeah. You know how many times that happened to me, Jason. I'm sitting there warming up because I'm on deck, and then they're like, nope, your swing bout. So now I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get a TV opportunity if one of these fights end. Of course, the fights go the distance, and they say, okay, you're the post lim now. I'm like, dude, I literally warmed up for 5 hours, Jason. But that's what happens when you're a massive hometown, ticket seller. So, props to Steve Garcia reaching into the UFC level. But yeah, I'm favoring him in this matchup.
The good and bad sides of being a massive ticket seller on the regional scene is sometimes you might be waiting around a while to fight there. And that's just, that's the absolute reality with this one. Let's move on to the next matchup. We got Andre Fialho taking on Jake Matthews. Andre Fialho, 8,500. Jake Matthews, 7,700. Andre Fialho, just call him the new Donald Cerrone of the UFC, as he just wants to fight as much as possible, which can be a good thing, but could be a bad thing depending on how your body's kind of reacting to it. Obviously, Jake Matthews been in the UFC for a long time. I mean, look, I would be shocked if Matthews does not try to utilize wrestling in this one.
I would be shocked if this fight's not optimal. This is one of my priorities this week. It really is. The main event's a priority. This fight's a priority. I think a lot of people will find value in Jake Matthews, as do I. I think he hits really, really hard, and he has the takedowns in his back pocket. That's going to be met with some resistance against Andre Fialho out of Sanford MMA, who really has just elevated this game from, being bounce around from promotion to promotion to now being an exciting UFC name. Everybody likes him because he goes forward and hits you with big combinations. If you look at the Andre Fialho fights, though, he's hit with some massive shots against Michel Pereira, rocked. Hit with some massive shots against Miguel Baeza, rocked. Massive shots against Cameron Van Camp on short notice, rocked. The chin's susceptible to getting knocked out. Like, he really is. He's so good at being the hammer, but sometimes he's vulnerable to getting hit and wobbled with some big shots. With all that being said, I'm still picking Andre Fialho because I don't necessarily trust Jake Matthews' chin either. We've seen him get hit and outboxed against Tony Martin. We've also seen, him get rocked against some other fighters. And like, the war against Li Jing Liang is how I'm predicting this fight to go. He scored 96 in that fight, and he threw caution to the wind. And he realized that he's going to get rocked in the fight, but he's also going to do his best to rock his opponent. And they traded hooks after hooks until Li Jing Liang got, he got planted a couple times on his backside, and then it turned into a whole crazy war. So I'm predicting a war. I really like Andre Fialho right now, and I don't necessarily think that Jake Matthews has the best body language against an aggressive striker. So I'm picking Andre Fialho 8,500, but this is group number 2, man. Andre Fialho, Jake Matthews.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Fialho, I mean, look, we all know about the striking abilities, and we've talked about here on the show about, you talk about how fighters evolve, and I've correlated to Andre Fialho, Joaquin Buckley. When you think of Fialho and Buckley early on in their career when they were in Bellator, and to the fighters they are now, they're just different fighters. I mean, they just are. And Andre Fialho, Jake Matthews got to watch out for those hands. That's why I do think you're going to see Matthews go that takedown route. We'll see whether or not that happens. Of course, one of the things Pete and I love to see after the fights are over are those winning screenshots. We want to see you go into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to be rocking that Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile. Of course, we place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. All you got to do is tweet those screenshot wins to @Awesemo HOF. You'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Only one free month can be awarded to a user per calendar year. Congratulations, Ugly 8 Game taking down some huge contests over there in NBA over there on FanDuel, taking over $70,000. Kudos to you. J187 taking down some MLB contests. Kudos what you're able to do over there. Some MLB. Also, Jordan taking down second in MLB contest, winning $40,000. And I always say, save a little money for that tax man. By the way, since I've got to write a check here in the next couple of days, that those quarterly payments to IRS are due June 18th. So just let you know, if you're like me, got to make those quarterly payments, especially if you're winning these big monies in DFS, you got to put some money to the side there. Also, Trappist taking down first place in a MLB contest. So congratulations to everyone that has gone into the Awesemo Hall of Fame over the past couple of days. Let's move on to the next matchup. You got Dana taking on Kung Ho Kang. Kang 7,900. Dana 8,300. Pete, what's your take?
It's a tricky fight, man. It's a really tricky fight because Dana Bakary, he hits so damn hard, and when he hits people, they go to sleep. But he's coming off of a very quick return from getting knocked out back in March against Chris Gutierrez, where he was looking good in round 1, and then Chris Gutierrez round 2 made some adjustments and hit him with a beautiful spinning back fist. So I mean, it's a little soon, to be honest, to be coming back in June now. Just turned June. So it's like, man, is he completely healed? His opponent is not necessarily a, knockout artist. Kyung Ho Kang likes to mix in takedowns. So the matchup isn't a horrible matchup. But if you go back and you look at Dana Bakary against Haley Alatang, he lost that decision, and he was forced to defend some takedowns. In all of his wins in the UFC, he has not had to defend any takedowns. Guido Canetti, Kevin Natividad, and Brandon Davis, striking matchups. I think that Kyung Ho Kang is just going to blend things so well. And Kyung Ho Kang gives me no reason to not trust his durability. He's fought some heavy hitters as well. I think that not as heavy as Dana Bakary, but styles make fights, and just incorporating takedowns can make Dana Bakary a little gun shy, especially because he just came off of getting knocked out. And I think in a close matchup, Kyung Ho Kang's going to land some takedowns. And if people are down on Kyung Ho Kang for losing to Hani Yahya, so be it. I'm okay with it because Hani Yahya is one of the best grapplers in the UFC. So it's a lean towards Kyung Ho Kang, but this matchup doesn't scream, you know, a priority for me. Like Kyung Ho Kang in some decision wins, 92 against Ping Yuan, 100 against Brandon Davis. That was strong. You know what I mean? So like, I don't necessarily view this as a ceiling fight, but I'm going to be leaning in Kyung Ho Kang's favor.
I mentioned about there's a female matchup on this card that I am going to be leaning heavy on just because I think that it's going to be an optimal play here. And when you see a over 1.5 line on a female fight in the UFC at minus 125, Pete, that should tell you something.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's volatile, man, and it's super volatile.
It is. Like, you don't have faith on either side. Let's not kid ourselves here. I don't trust either one of these fighters. But like, no. I feel like in terms of GPPs, we got to get to Juarez or we got to get to Na. We have to get to these fighters because I would be relatively surprised if this fight's not optimal.
Yeah. So this is group number 3. And that's how I'm constructing lineups this week. And I really feel like that construction is going to lead to a ton of success. I'm feeling it. We're getting into the Awesemo Hall of Fame. It's been a little bit, but we're getting into it. We're taking everything down. And naturally, I think Liang Na is going to be the most popular underdog on the slate. She looked really good in round 1 against Ariana Carnelosi. She's aggressive. She dropped her with a right hand. She followed it up with relentless takedowns and top pressure and reversals and submission attempts and ground and pound. And she's a round 1 fighter. She's a complete liability outside of round 1. If you look at her record, she can get reversed in positions because she hunts submissions recklessly. She could put on her back, fishing for arm bars. If she does not get it, she can get pounded out or submitted herself. Now, Savannah Gomez Juarez, from a box score standpoint, looks like this is a horrible matchup for her. And I would say it is, in a way. She hasn't shown us anything of how she can defend takedowns. The Lupi Godinez fight might be a little bit overblown because Lupi's a monster. That loss doesn't look so bad right now. The loss against Vanessa Demopoulos looks terrible on the box score. She dropped her with a big shot, and then the fight IQ went out the window, and she got armbarred for her second straight submission loss in the UFC. So Silvana's an ownership play. I'm going to have a ton of Silvana just because outside of round 1, I don't think that Liang Na is tested, and I think that she can get bullied at times. And Silvana's not horrible striking. Like, she has power and everything, but it's the official pick is Liang Na via decision. No, Liang Na via submission. And this is one of my most prioritized fights on the slate.
I'm going to tell you this right now. Looking at ownership projections, I'm going to be way over the field.
I already know what you're talking about. And that's why, like, when I was making lineups today, I was like, I'm like 50 times the ownership on some of these fighters. Like,
look, it's a volatile fight. I mean, look, you don't trust either one of these fighters. I mean, you hate to trust someone at 8,600 when she's lost in the first round in both of her UFC fights. That's scary to go to. Mm-hmm. But to me, just in terms of the upside on both these, I want to get to both these fighters. I'm going to have a ton of them. And probably the hardest thing for me is who I'm putting in a single entry lineup.
Yeah,
that's probably gonna be the hard one for me. Is who to put in single entry. When a mass entering contest, that's easy. I can kind of get some ownership everywhere. But yeah. Also, the first fight of the night, also a female matchup. You got Edwards taking on Pascal. Pascal 7,500. Edwards 8,700. Do we gotta prioritize the first fight of the night? Please tell me no.
I say no. I personally say no, and I think that Ramona Pascal is big for the division, and she's tough. She absorbed a ton of strikes in her debut, which I believe was on short notice against Josiane Nunes. Correct. And, she actually did pretty well. She, threw some strikes on the feet. Her takedowns are her path to victory. She needs to land takedowns against Jocelyn Edwards. And that's been Edwards' Achilles heel throughout her entire career, especially in the UFC, where she gets taken down and she's losing minutes. So the minute and a half on the feet where she's looking good, flailing her arms, throwing combinations, does not outweigh the takedown and control of some of her opponents. Now, some of her opponents, pretty big name value. Carol Hossa and Jessica Rose Clark, 2 talented fighters, I would have to say. I like the adjustments that Jocelyn Edwards taken some time off. We haven't seen her in the cage in a little bit since October of last year, and now training with Valentina Shevchenko, a part of that camp. I kind of like that. It's not this style. It's not like she's going in there and training with with T City's girlfriend. What's her name? Tracy Cortez.
Yeah.
Who's just a massive, wrestler. But I just think, training with Shevchenko is going to elevate your game. So the pick is Jocelyn Edwards, but Ramona Pascal is a complete sprinkle for me. I'm sprinkling her in because if she gets takedowns and she banks 2 rounds, she's tough as hell. She may not get finished and she may win a decision. So the pick is Edwards with the sprinkle of Pascal.
Of course, let's get into our straight up fight picks. These are not DFS related. Main event and new. Give me Jiri.
Oh, man. Okay. You already know I'm going to have a ton of ownership for both of them. Just because I'm from Connecticut, I'm picking Glover Teixeira.
Co-main event. Do we really have to? I guess we have to say it. Valentina.
Shevchenko, baby.
We've already talked. We're on different sides of this one. Give me Weili Zhang against Joanna.
Give me Joanna.
I will take Manel Kape.
Manel Kape.
I'm pretty safe. I can say that we're both taking Maddalena.
Yes.
Give me my first underdog in Jacob Malkoun.
Malkoun.
Give me Choi.
Choi.
I will go Garcia, but have concerns.
I'm going Garcia.
I will go Fialho.
Fialho. It's a close one.
Give me my second underdog. I'll go Kung Ho Kang.
Kang.
Then give me my third underdog. Give me Na.
Oh God, I can't believe we got to pick. I'm gonna, just for the hell of it, I'm gonna say Gomez Juarez.
Oof, yeah. And then for the first fight of the night, I'll go with the favorite Edwards.
Yeah, Edwards.
We'll finish up this episode of the Strategy Show. We'll address Samuel's super chat. Of course, Samuel, as always, appreciate you in the super chat. Let's start off top 2 cash.
Shevchenko and Maddalena.
Yeah, I think I would go that way as well. GPPs. Ooh, I mean, like Sam, I'm sure you want actual fighters. I'll give you fighters and fighters. First off, the main event, I think you gotta be looking at, like, to me, like in terms of GPPs of fights, I think you gotta be looking at Jiri Glover, Maddalena Emeev. The Juarez fight would be the other one. In terms of fighters, GPPs, I would say Maddalena because of the price point there in terms of that. And my number 2 would probably be Jiri.
Yeah, I don't hate any of that. I mean, I think we laid out a great way to attack this slate. And, the confident plays like Manel Kape, confident play. Shevchenko, confident play. Other Choi, confident play. Other matchups, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky, but there's tons of ceiling for certain fights.
In terms of the top underdogs for me, I look at Jacob Malkoun because of the grappling upside in that one, and also the grappling upside that I'd mentioned as an underdog play would be Jake Matthews.
Yeah, I'm saying favorite underdog for me personally is Jacob Malkoun. Glover Teixeira and Joanna are kind of tied in my mind for number 2. So prioritizing main event and co-main event. Well, not even co-main event. It should be the co-main event. It's tough. It should be a 5-round fight. But the Joanna and Glover are kind of like 1A, 1B.
Yeah. MVP plays.
Maddalena.
Yeah. I mean, I look Maddalena.
Fialho.
I mean, you love Shevchenko with the price point so high. That's why it's tough to get there for me. Favorite inside the distance. I mean, I think we've kind of labeled out the fights. Main event.
For sure.
I would put Malkoun and Allen as potentially, if it's a Malkoun, a very late stoppage. But if it's Allen, I think I could see him getting a first or second round finish with the strikes on the feet.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Holland had Brendan Allen in some bad spots. He almost had a rear naked choke sunk in. And same with Kyle Dawkins. They both had really, really good positions. So it's a little bit of MMA math, but it's also from the film. Malkoun looks like a monster on film, and I love it.
In terms of leverage plays, Emeev would be a leverage play for me. Takedown upside, but you brought up a great point about could that cardio be there for 3 rounds? And then we talked about the second fight of the night. That's on both sides of that fight.
Yes, agreed.
Optimal and dart plays. Dart plays for me. Looking at the low end, I would put Joanna as a dart play for me because of where the price point is at 7,400.
Okay, you ready for my dart play? Ramona Pasquale. That's a dart.
I don't mind that one. I don't mind that one at all because of the takedown upside. I mean, optimal plays to me. I mean, I think it's you got to be looking at the main event. And maybe the Manel Kape and Rogerio Bontorin fight is another optimal play that we didn't really touch on too much about how it could be optimal on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, Bontorin is a strong guy for the division, so he scored well in losses. So, but I'm picking Manel Kape.
Sam, we got a great number here this week on the over-under. You're stepping your game up this week. 7.5, 12 fights. That's a good number.
That's a very good number. I'm saying, I am saying under.
Yeah, I would lean under as well on that one. And no updates on Pete's next fight. Pete's still how's the hand doing? The hand doing better, bro?
Yeah, it is. It's doing better. It is doing better. It's not perfect yet, but it is doing way better. So yeah, the timetable is still the same.
Clearly you were not looking at Tyler.
I was watching Tyler. I'm an adult. I was not worried about Tyler.
Hey, sometimes we gotta have some fun here on the strategy show, you know?
Of course.
By the way, we'll be here on Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. I mean, my guy Pete's squeezing us in here on Saturday.
Yeah, I'm leaving a wedding to come home, shoot the live before lock, and then head back to the wedding. So I
don't
hope you
get
guys
married
appreciate.
on Saturday. It's pretty simple.
Well, yeah, I mean, who gets married while fights are going on, right? Just tell my girlfriend that. So I mean, it's I don't know. I always try to be here for you guys, and I love it, and breaking down the fights, and we got lineups to make. We got money to make. So can't wait for it.
Yeah. It's that's why I say, like, for me, don't get married during football season. That was my thing.
Yeah.
That's just not gonna end well. It's not gonna end well. I tell the buddies, I go,
I won't show up. I won't show up. I've had friends get married on Saturday in football season, and they text me, "Are you coming?" And I said, "I told you the rules to this friendship, and no, A&M's playing."
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
That is true. That is true. But that is going to do it for this edition of the MMA Strategy Show. We'll be back here on Saturday, live for lock. Of course, a huge thanks to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Be sure to check out the props they have over for UFC 275 at prizepicks.com. And we will talk to you on Saturday for live before lock. Have a good day, everybody.